डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी।
Namaskar. I, Jayjit Trivedi, welcome all of you students from the Chaitanya Studio located at Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University. Today, we are going to discuss about paper number 2 of the MJMC course, and the name of the paper is Understanding Media, Mass Communication and Journalism. We have already discussed about this paper earlier as well, and today we will be discussing further. First of all, let us look at what we have discussed earlier in section number 3. So, we had already discussed in detail that how Spectator and Tetler, remember these are name of the newspapers, two newspapers which which are considered as pioneers of the journalism field. So, Spectator and Tetler, pioneers of modern journalism. Then we have discussed about the writing style of Spectator. Remember the writing style of Spectator, it is considered as the basic writing style till date for all the newspapers. Now, limited use of literary language and jargons. We have already learnt that these two newspapers set a precedent of not using jargons and stick to the basic language for the newspaper. Then we learnt about starting of citizen journalism with letter to the editor and opinion columns in The Guardian, right? The Guardian again was a newspaper which started segments of letter to editor and opinion columns. This is the first newspaper which included voices of the readers of the newspaper and incorporated citizen journalism, first time ever. Then we have learnt focused on sharing information and educating people instead of present day media, which is focusing on sensationalizing politics in a bid to reach out to more people. Now, nowadays, we see that in order to reach to more and more people, what media is doing, it is creating sensationalism, right? But in earlier days, these newspapers, these journals have set a precedent that the focus should be on sharing the information and educating the people instead of creating more and more sensational and reaching more people, right? We have already discussed about this in section number 3. Today we will discuss section number 4, that is modern journalism in 20th century. Now, let us look at this. In initial days and years, gossip was the main content, right? We have already learned this, that in initial form of journalism, gossip was the main content. We have learned about coffee shops, right? Wherein most of the news was derived from the gossip happening at the coffee shop, right? Then gossip was the main content in the newspapers of the 16th and 17th centuries. Real professional journalism, which can be called the foundation of the modern days of journalism, took a while. It took a while, as anything progresses in the life, it takes a while to settle down, to progress, and to prosper, right? So, initial journalism started with gossip, and step by step, it grew and it became more and more professional. After gossip, poems, fictions, and humor were being printed and published in the newspapers of the 17th century. Right. Now, in the 17th century, we went ahead from gossip and we started printing poems, fictions, and humor. Now, we all know that these are the sections which attract the people most. Today also, if you see the form of literature wherein poems, fictions and humorous channels, you go to social media, humor channels are getting more and more views. You go to television, Kapil Sharma show, that is also a humorous channel. These all things attract the attention of the viewer or reader. So that's why initial years the journalism was focusing on poem, fiction and humor. Although the printing press was invented way back in 1456. Now, let me know in the comment box who invented the printing box. I am giving you a hint. It was invented in Germany. Right? Now, 1456, yet the creation of a proper, rather professional newspaper took almost 200 years. Though we started printing as human beings, we started printing in 1456, but it took almost 200 years to professionally print the newspaper. Right? According to British history, the first regular, that is daily. Now, mind these things. In the previous lecture, while discussing about Mumbai Samachar, we have also focused on the word daily. Here also, the first regular, that is daily newspaper, was published on March 11th, 1702 by the name of Daily Courant. Right? This is the name of the newspaper, and it continued to be published for 30 years. Now, interesting fact is that the first editor of this newspaper was a woman. Right? Today we talk about women empowerment, safety of women, women should be and all. But mind it, in 1702, a woman started daily newspaper. That shows how journalism field has been, how inviting and how vast the field has been. It has always been progressive, right? And she was the first woman journalist named Elizabeth Mallet, right? Here is the photo. She was the first editor of the newspaper, right? Then the British government came up with an act termed as Press Restriction Act, a historical act which restricted some of the media from printing some of the news. We'll see it later. According to this act, no newspaper could be published without carrying the name of the printer and the place of the publication. Now, why such need arose? Because there were some papers or newspapers who used to write against the government. They used to write and they used to publish and distribute the paper. No one used to know from where this newspaper has come, who has published, who has written this. No one used to know. So the government made it clear and compulsory to specify the names of the printer and place of publication, so that government can know who printed this and where it was printed. Though a number of newspapers were published in British America colonies, yet none can be called the founding stone of modern journalism. Right? It was only in the beginning of 19th century. Now we are going into another century, that professionalism in real sense of the word was introduced in journalism practice, right? Beginning of 19th century. We have already learned that it took 200 years to publish a newspaper professionally, right? For the first time, there were professional editors to head the newspapers. Slowly, newspaper offices got better organized. Reporters and photographers were hired and assigned specific tasks and beats. We all know what is beat. We have already discussed. I will tell you again, like civic is a beat, education is a beat, right? Same ways, entertainment is a beat. These are beats. We can say these are areas in which a reporter or photographer will be working, right? So they were assigned work according to their beats for the first time. So it lagged on many grounds, as it was not first hand or on the spot reporting, right? Though the reporters were assigned beats by beats, but the reporting still was not first hand or from spot reporting. They were depending on people or other sources for the news they were gathering, right? So it was not on the spot reporting or not first hand reporting. So many times news was lifted from other sources and reused or recycled, right? We can see this practice today as well in the journalism field. You mention in comments, where do you see these things where news is taken from the other source and reused or recycled, right? Some newspapers were filling space with poetry, fiction, and humor. We have discussed earlier that poetry, fiction, and humor were integral part of journalism, but now some newspapers were filling the space. Not all newspapers and not all the space was filled by these, but some space was still filled by poetry, fiction, and humor, right? It was industrialization. Mind it, this word or this era of industrialization changed the course of the world, of each and every field. Journalism also has been changed after industrialization, which encouraged newspapers to adapt technology, right? Because of industrialization, new technology starting and evolved the newspaper, which later increased the printing speed. In earlier lectures, we have discussed about various kind of printers, right? If you remember, mention that in the comment box. We have already discussed from the early day printers to the modern day printing machines. We have already discussed all these and their speed as well. Due to this, the production cost of newspapers came down, and it enabled the owners and editors to enhance their circulation. So, because the circulation started and grew, the uh, because the circulation grew, the newspaper also became famous, right? And people came to know about these newspaper and they started reading the newspapers. With increase in circulation, the revenue growth was visible, right? Ultimately, each and every business is done for revenue growth, right? So journalism is also a business. It is a business of printing newspapers. So ultimately, because of the industrialization, new technology came. That's why new production methods were used. That's why circulation was improved and ultimately revenue growth was visible, right? In the mid 1800s, the world had the first newspaper, which can be termed the foundation stone of modern journalism, right? This was the New York Herald. The name of the newspaper was New York Herald. It was published in 1835 by James Gordon Bennett. The first newspaper that had staff reporters on specific beats to report about city events. Right, the newspaper was city based, the name suggests New York Herald, right? So it was based in New York only, and it had staff reporters on specific beats. They used to report about city events, right? This newspaper used to send reporters to the spot and cover the incident or event. Now, remember, reporters first time in New York Herald, it this newspaper started sending reporters to the spot. Earlier, the journalists used to depend upon secondary sources, right? The newspaper also had business and stock market reporters. So, we discussed that it used to have different beats in which business and stock market reporters also were there, who were regularly reporting about Wall Street trading. Now, let me know what is Wall Street, located at New York, but why it is famous. What is situated in the Wall Street? It was the maiden newspaper to introduce the system of appointing foreign correspondents. Right? Foreign correspondents were first introduced in this newspaper. It had appointed correspondents in Europe and other countries as well. So, this was perhaps for the first time that America got regular reports from the Congress, as the newspaper had a dedicated reporter for the Congress covering its sessions. Right? This is again an example of recruiting beat and recruiting reporters as per the beats. But still, there was a lot of ambiguity with regards to balanced reporting and medical ethics. Right? This opacity was cleared in 1855 with the launch of New York Times. So, we have learnt about the New York Herald today and some of the earlier journalism practices. For this unit, for this lecture, I am keeping it to this only, and for more we will discuss it in the next lecture. Till then, namaskar. स्वाध्यायः